Welcome to Nikon Report, your weekly roundup of all the latest Nikon news and all other photographic announcements that we found interesting.
And only the stuff that we found interesting and nothing else.
It's Konstantin here, and
this is Becky.
Then the main news of the day, the current update of the Nikon product starts at the border.
That's right. So a lot of you have been emailing me and asking me about this situation. I do try to make the information generally available for the population. No idea why I'm speaking like this. We have clarified with our Nikon representatives that the stock is on its way. We have had a small shipment. We will be receiving more shipments. There will be slightly more delays than usual. So whereas prior to Brexit, we would get deliveries every day pretty much, or every couple of days, we're now looking at weekly to fortnightly delivery. So please do be patient. If you have bought something from us, we will get to you as soon as possible. On that note,
yes,
Nikon Rumors pointed out that Nikon had put a store notice saying UK shipping, due to Brexit changes, we are temporarily pausing the shipping to the UK. And I think that freaked out a lot of people.
Absolutely. Well, thank you, Prime Minister, for this update. What this notice means is their store that sells directly to the consumer is no longer taking any orders, but they still are shipping products to dealers.
Yeah.
So the products are still coming to us. You can't just order it directly from Nikon.
That's all that means. So nobody panic. There are still shipments coming to the UK to your favorite dealers.
Keep calm and carry on. On another news, Nikon will be present at virtual CP Plus show in Japan, which will be held from 25th till 28th of February. Now, that will be an online event only, and it's about 20 companies so far have confirmed their presence. Now, CES, that happened, last week or 2 weeks ago, was a bit of a letdown. So we hope that Nikon will announce some new things on there.
It would be great. This is what they know as the camera and photo imaging show. So do we normally get releases on those?
Yes. Generally, we have a roundup of news happening between January till about end of March, which is end of their financial year. So the announcement can happen any month now. And since nothing happened in January, hopefully in February we'll see some news.
We'll get a Mondo release. That's
Absolutely.
What we want.
And then there was also an interview published with Nikon Managing Executive Officer Hirotaka Ikegami, which was for Japanese magazine. It's Toyoko.
Toyokai Zai.
Well, your Japanese is so much better than mine, I can tell you that.
Well, it doesn't say Tokyo, I can tell you that much. It says Toyokai Zai or something like that.
Yes, in this interview, he doesn't share any news on upcoming products. What he says, though, is that Nikon will currently concentrate mostly on mirrorless system.
I think we kind of covered a little bit of that last week during our podcast, but that's the full interview, which we'll post a link to below. Absolutely.
There he also covers 2020 year for Nikon, from COVID events to other things that affected their supply. So very interesting interview, a nice read on weekends.
If you open it with Google, then you can also translate the page, because it is in Japanese, just so you know.
Yeah, Google Translate is a wonderful thing.
A quick reminder for you, the £180 enhanced part exchange offer that is running from Nikon on the Z6 II and the Z7 II ends at the end of this month. That gives us not that much time, less than a week in fact, until that's over. Now, if you do decide you want to take advantage of that offer and you're wondering when you're going to get your camera, please do drop us an email. We will manage to make it work for you, don't you worry, so you can still get the benefit of it.
The last news that came directly from Nikon is Nikon issued a firmware update for their COOLPIX P1000 camera, where they fixed an issue that caused pairing between the camera and devices running the SnapBridge app under iOS 14 and iPadOS 14 to fail. So, stability improvements, and I would say some connection wireless things.
But only for the P1000?
Only for P1000.
Because I get that issue with my Z6.
All right, I don't have this issue at all.
So what happens is if I connect to the Z6 and download a file, it says there was an error, there was a failure, and then I reconnect it and it works fine.
All right, there's a video on a channel which is called Grace Westminster channel about how to pair your SnapBridge with your mirrorless camera.
I've done that, and I know how that works, so thank you for plugging your video. In a segment we like to call, Is This News? Nikon rumors confirmed that the sensor inside the Nikon Z7 camera is made by Sony Semiconductor Company. Is this news, Con?
Is this news, Becky?
Did we not already know this?
Most of the cameras produced by Nikon, Sony Semiconductor Company manufactured the sensors for them according to strict Nikon design and specifications that not only include the schematics, but also things like RGB filters and color sizes. So Nikon process and motherboard to scan and read the sensor.
Right.
Okay, so...
But we already knew that.
We already knew that.
But now they've confirmed it.
Exactly.
Well, thank you.
Please note that Sony Steel's cameras and lenses are made by another operating company in Sony Corporation.
Oh, right. Interesting.
Okay, so it's not the company that manufactures Sony cameras, manufactures the sensors. So while the sensors are generally of the same megapixels available off the shelf,
Yes.
Nikon supplies designs to manufacture their sensors for their cameras.
Right.
So that's why we see videos which compare, let's say, Nikon and Sony cameras and see how they behave differently.
Right. So it's interesting that this came up as news, considering that it's generally known knowledge from the last few decades.
Yeah, it's been a slow week, isn't it?
It's been a slow week for the news industry. That must be it. Not
Still
enough
January. Next time, they'll tell us that Nikon doesn't manufacture their own screws or their own LCD screens. You never know.
You never know. That would be breaking news too, I'm sure. All right. In other news,
The company, which is called 7 Artisans, will soon announce their 4 new mirrorless lenses. So we have their 7.5mm f2.8 fisheye Mark II,
wow.
10mm fisheye, 55mm f1.4, and 60mm 2.8, all designed for mirrorless cameras. Now, 2 of those lenses, 55 and 60s, are designed for their DX sensors, so Z50 primarily.
As are the fisheye. One
Yes.
of the fisheye, sorry.
Yes, and then 10mm is designed for full-frame sensors, so it can be used on both. For full specifications, do have a look at Photorumor's website.
Nice. Another addition to the Z-mount lineup, we have the company Pergear announcing a 10mm f8 APS-C pancake lens for the Z-mount. So it will basically be a pancake DX lens, cheap and cheerful, at only $79 and weighing 90 grams.
So that's tiny, isn't it?
That's a teeny tiny lens, perfect probably for a Z50, I would say.
Good walk around, isn't it?
And maybe those Z30s that you keep talking about that we haven't seen
Yes, which are still coming,
according to Con.
perhaps on CP Plus show in February in Japan.
Not Nikon rumors, Con rumors.
Yes, so since it's going to be online only, and we all have Google Translate, come join us for online screening of this event. I'm not going to be there.
No.
In the next news, BCN Ranking published 2020 Japanese camera market share report.
Is it interesting?
It is, because there are 2 segments that we are really interested in. So Nikon DSLR camera share went up by more than 5%. So it's still at number 2 spot after Canon. So Canon has 51.9% share this year, down from 57.4%.
Right.
And Nikon has 44.8% share, which was up from 39.3% from last year.
Good.
Now, in mirrorless segment, Nikon went from number 3 position to number 4.
Ooh.
The top 3 are occupied by Sony, Canon, and Olympus. It seems to me that this year Nikon will be at least at number 3, since Olympus went out of business.
Since Olympus sold their business, we should
That's
say.
right, and we are not seeing any releases in the near future, I think.
No, I don't believe so, although they might surprise us.
Please keep in mind that the data that's been published only corresponds to roughly 40% of the retailers here and doesn't cover big names such as Yodobashi camera, which is huge, Map camera, Fujiya camera, and Kitamura. So it's not all market, but it is a sample of sorts.
It gives us an idea. It's not necessarily a 100% accurate representation of the rankings.
Yeah, and this is in Japan only, so it doesn't cover, let's say, UK, Europe, or United States.
Now, is this a Chinese manufacturer? Is it?
Yes, it's an interesting development.
Okay, so Zitay, Z-I-T-A-Y, whatever they're called, have created a CF Express to SSD converter card reader.
Imagine you've got your XQD, well, CF Express card, and it's got a big cable coming out of it. You should see the picture of it. And then you will have an enclosure for your M2 type SSD drive.
Wow.
That's pretty cool, isn't it? Not very useful for regular photographers, but what it allows you to do is to use larger drives, which go to 1-2 terabyte capacity, compared to, let's say, 1 terabyte that would cost a fortune in CF Express format. It also will allow for faster writing speeds, therefore a faster recording from the memory buffer of the camera to the SSD drive. However, it makes it look bulky because there is a card inside the camera, the door doesn't lock, and there's a cable coming out for SSD storage. Now, I think that can be useful for videographers who need to shoot, let's say, at 4K, or on some cameras even 8K, so it's a large amount of data.
Yes.
And then maybe for some time-lapse photographers where, let's say, if you have 24, 48-hour time-lapse,
then you would need a lot of storage space.
Exactly.
For that.
But not very practical for general photography, I would say.
No, but £179 for 1 terabyte versus that's about the cost of a 64 gig XQD or CF Express card. That's true. Comparable.
You will need additional drive though. So you need to buy 1 terabyte SSD drive, which is about £100 in UK. So still fairly inexpensive. Now, keep in mind that they recommend pretty much the latest drives to be used with them. So Samsung 970 and 980 drives. They say do not use all the SSD drives because the power consumption is higher compared to the new drives. So because the power will have to come from the camera, you can't use the old drives.
Right.
Okay, so do have a look at the picture of it to imagine how it looks like. It's not a very practical solution for general photography, but it could be an interesting solution for videographers, I would say.
Okay. That was the news that you found interesting.
I did,
I'm like,
yes. It's we're all geeks in our certain fields, isn't it? I don't speak English today. All right, well, since it's been a very slow week for Nikon news, let's cover some software today.
Yes, I often get asked the question, should I be using Adobe software or Nikon software? I find this kind of a tricky one to answer. They both have their pros and cons for sure. The Nikon software is very clunky. Obviously, it's not made by a specialist software company anymore.
That's correct.
It used to be back in the days of
Nik software.
Back in the days of Capture NX 1 and 2.
Yes.
So now we have free software available from the Nikon website, and DP Review actually posted an article on what the pros and cons are between Adobe Camera Raw and Nikon View NXI and Capture NXD, and which you should be using for different purposes. Now, if you find that interesting, which I did, I found that interesting to see the pros and cons, because Adobe, obviously, like most software companies, has a recurring subscription fee. It has some caveats. It's not designed by the camera manufacturer themselves, so perhaps lacks things in certain places. Yeah, so having a free Nikon software is not that bad, but it comes with its own sort of challenges, like user interface. Yes, user interface is not very friendly, but if you can work your way around it, and I think that that's possibly the conclusion. There's a number of grids and spreadsheets and graphs, so if you like that sort of thing, then do go check that out in the description box or in the podcast notes for us. And they also have some comparison pictures to see what the image is going to look straight out of the camera, imported in either, let's say, Lightroom or Nikon software. I find that fascinating. Yes. Colors, science, vignetting control, all sorts of things. So have a look at that. It's very interesting. Ricoh Focal, which is a lens calibrating software, has released their 2021 final release with support of Z6 and Z7 Mark II cameras. We get full support, so you can calibrate your cameras there. They released a full VR test, which is called stabilization test. So if you like to see if your vibration reduction in your lens function, you can do that. They also modified and improved their multi-test. That's the test where you can calibrate your camera and lens just to see to fine-tune your lens effectively, which is now actually available as auto procedure in Nikon cameras. That's right. But if you would like to have a second opinion, you can use the software. They also released a brand new Mac OS interface. So if you're using the Mac OS system, that's going to be a good improvement. There's some other bug and stability fixes. This is a software that's been used by many people who struggle with autofocus front and back focusing issues. Yeah, back in the day especially. So if you do have any issues with your older equipment or even more modern equipment, then this is the software to use to fix it. Yes. I think it's more useful for DSLRs
Not as much as for mirrorless, but again, you can still test your mirrorless camera and see what happens. It will create 20-page report on how good your lens is from all sorts of things. So if you're into charts and lines and all sorts of things, you can do that.
Yeah.
It's a paid software, but you can try a trial version. I think it's a 30-day trial on their website.
That was the news that you found interesting.
I did.
Unlike I would say, complaints from people who don't like to pay monthly for a subscription. I'm amongst those people.
Yes.
I mean, between Netflix and Amazon Photo and Disney Plus, I'm pretty much up to my limit.
Yeah, between Netflix and Lightroom. I'm not sure what to choose, really.
So there is a software available out there called Affinity Photo, which is currently 50% off. It's normally about $50 or £53, I believe, and it's now available for under $25.
$25?
And it's just a one-off purchase. Affinity Photo has been recommended to me by a few people over the years, although it's a fairly new contender, I would say, to the main software.
Well, they've been out for about 5 years now.
Yes. So I finally took the plunge because I thought 50% off was a bit of a deal. However, we are not sponsored by them or anyone else. Just saying.
Which is a shame.
It's a crying shame. I just thought I'd mention that I actually took advantage of this offer. I think that it is a good offer if you want a standalone, not quite Photoshop, but Photoshop copy, if you like.
I think this is pretty much a first alternative after Photoshop.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Don't forget to like and subscribe if you like this video. We are on our way to 6,000 subscribers by mid-February. So we do appreciate if you hit that button below and join us.
Absolutely. Or if you're listening on a podcast, please do follow us.
And do leave us a review, because the more reviews we get, the more we will be promoted by their systems. And if you are in stats and pie charts, or you're an Excel guru, you definitely will like this last bit of software that we'll recommend. It's called Photo Statistica 2.0. What it does, it scans your library, either Lightroom or Capture One library, and it exports the EXIF data from all the photographs that you've taken, and then gives you a graphical visual representation of how many pictures you've taken with, let's say, 85mm focal distance, or what's your most used ISO or aperture is.
Wow.
That's pretty interesting, isn't it?
That is interesting. And it's only available on Mac OS, did you say?
Yes, for now, hopefully. And hopefully we'll have some Windows release soon. I would say it's interesting if you're not sure what your favorite lens is. Maybe your favorite lens is 35, but most of your images are taken at 24. You never know.
I think it's helpful, particularly if you're trying to decide maybe what lens to buy next or what camera to buy. If you find, based on the statistics, that you tend to shoot above 1600 ISO, for example, then you would look for a camera that's better in low light. Whereas if you're using zoom lenses and you want to invest in 1 prime...
That's true. That's actually going to be quite useful.
It tells you, oh, well, you tend to shoot at 105, so the logic would obviously be to buy a 105 lens. So
not going to help your photography.
No.
But definitely will give you starts.
Next article for your weekend read is Understanding Field Curvature, Part 1 and 2. This is perhaps a little bit esoteric, but you might find it interesting if you've been, if you've been wondering what field curvature is and how it works. This article explains in relatively simple terms all of that.
And if you haven't fallen asleep after reading those 2 articles, read about focus briefing from DP Review as well. That will get you going.
Next one up, I'm sure that we covered this 2 weeks ago.
No, that was about film photography previously, and now it's black and white.
Okay. Next up, we have the absolute beginner's guide to film photography, but this version is what you need to know about black and white film.
Black and white edition.
So if you read the article from our previous weekend reads 2 weeks ago, I think it was, this could be interesting for those black and white photographers out there.
It looks like a special Leica edition of the same camera.
A special Leica edition of the same article.
Yes, yes. Now, the next article is called These Open Source Medium Format Cameras Are 3D Printed. 3D printers.
3D printed cameras.
What are they? Do you know what 3D printers are?
I do know what a 3D printer is, but I'm just looking at the camera that's been made. Wow.
All right. Well, we've seen a 3D printing revolution happening right now over several years. I've got a 3D printer myself. What 3D printer does, instead of printing with ink on a piece of paper, it melts the plastic and prints with the plastic, a 3D object. So now what these guys did, they design the cameras that you can print out yourself and you can start using them.
That's amazing.
It'll take you a couple of days to print out, but then it's a fully working, functional prototype.
A medium format camera
And,
as well.
and a medium format camera. Well, they also have 35mm format cameras.
Are you going to give it a go?
Well, I want to take it to the next level. What I want to do, when I have time, is actually get a digital camera, maybe one of those D70s, strip it down to bits,
Yeah.
and somehow print out an FM casing and somehow shove those bits into the plastic casing. Well, at least this is my idea. It will require a bit of programming knowledge.
You might need to patent that idea.
Well, I don't know, but fingers crossed by 2025, I will make it happen.
By 2025. Goals.
Like and subscribe.
What's this article about? In case you were planning to buy a Soviet camera, we've got an article here by Cosmo Photo with, I think it's...
I thought you said Konstantin Photo.
So close. You're so clever. By Cosmo Photo, which has not one, not two, but 14 very important parts to their article of what you need to know before you buy a Soviet camera. You might find that a week read rather than a weekend read. It might take you a while. It's a very extensive and comprehensive blog post on what to look out for.
Read that. Don't ask me. I don't know.
It's not your forte.
No. I have one Russian camera. It's called Zenit.
Yes, Zenit B.
Which one? I have no idea.
Oh, okay. Just one of the Zenits.
Now, the last bit of reading/watching. Have a look at that video from Leica. It's called The World Deserves Witnesses. It's about 1 minute long. And I think that's how photography marketing should be done.
So on our marketing malarkey index, it would be 0.
Yes.
Because it was properly done.
Yeah, 0 is good though.
No malarkey whatsoever.
Yes.
Just pure perfection.
I like Leica. I never use them. I think they're overly expensive. And if you look at the specifications, Nikon makes sense.
Yeah.
Now, what I like about Leica is the heritage. It's the names that attached to it.
Yes.
And maybe in one day, when I'll get billions from YouTube, I'll probably buy one just to have a look at it.
Just to put it on the shelf and admire it.
Yes, but the thing about them is, well, it doesn't make sense to me, let's say, to buy their cameras for specifications. It's just they're beautifully made and their marketing is spot on. And I think that photographic companies should look at them and maybe...
take a leaf out of their book.
Yes.
Thank you very much. That is all our news for this week. If you have not already subscribed, please do so.
Yes.
We're on the way to 6K.
That's right. And then if you want to see more Becky, you can find her...
at Rebecca_Danese on Instagram.
All right.
Or you are just...
Konstantin Kochkid on Instagram.
Nice and easy.
Yeah.
And please do give us a thumbs up. If you are listening on a podcast channel, then also give us a follow.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, and we will see you next week.